Thank you for joining us, Cara. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you guys for having me. My name is Cara Miller, and I'm the dietitian with Belmont University through Sodexo Dining Services. I do cover multiple universities across the Nashville and Tennessee area, but I am at Belmont at least twice a week, and you all can get a hold of me by email any day of the week. I also have an Instagram page at dietitian_Cara, which is up and coming. It's always improving. So if you guys have stuff you want me to include on there, just let me know. But I am the dietitian on campus. I do see students individually. If you're interested in meeting with the dietitian or just getting some healthy tips, please reach out. Don't be a stranger. I work with our dining team to help increase our vegetarian vegan options and look at our wellness offerings, as well as do our allergy training for our employees that help with our food allergy station at Simple Serving. Some of you have seen that. It's actually my favorite station to go. It's always delicious. But it's like a meat, starch, vegetable. It's free of our top allergens, so it helps keep a lot of the students safe on campus. What else do? I do a lot of different wellness events. I do things like this with you all. So if you even have like a Greek life or something you're involved in and you want some nutrition information, don't be a stranger. Again, just reach out. I also help with our athletes and Fit Rec and work with our counseling services. So I'm kind of all over the place. If you see me on campus like this with a mask, don't be a stranger and say hello.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, we have a few questions for you. We thought we could just kind of make it into a conversation, but we came up with a list of some questions kind of from the point of view of a college student and living on campus, kind of how that limits us and our ability to cook and eat healthy. So yeah. Addison, I'll throw it to you if you want to get started.
All right. Let's see here. To start us off, what would you say are some of the pitfalls that college students experience in relation to healthy eating?
In relation to healthy eating. So I think there are a few things. They all kind of go together. As you can imagine, a lot of our health and wellness things do all go together. So when I mention that, sleep is one that I'll touch on first, but we won't spend a lot of time on tonight. A lot of college students don't get enough sleep. And that can definitely affect your appetite. It can affect your hunger cues, and it can affect even some of your cravings. We've all like stayed up super late, and the next day you're like, why am I eating all this junk? And like that kind of thing, right? Usually you don't wake up after sleeping 2 hours and be like, I'm going to eat some fruits and vegetables. So making sure that you're getting enough sleep really does play in. But the other side of that is that good nutrition actually helps you sleep better. So it's a constant cycle. Making sure that students are getting enough hydration. I think a lot of people are not well hydrated just in general. I was talking with an athlete earlier today. 60% of athletes show up to a competition dehydrated. So you can imagine what our, general American society does. The other thing is just kind of getting back to basics. We're missing the whole grains. We're missing the fruits and vegetables. We're missing the lean proteins. We're missing having fun with food. That's when last week was National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, as our country discussed. And I was involved in a lot of different conversations there. And we're very into diet culture and body image and food rules and good and bad foods. And so we can get stuck on that, and that takes the enjoyment out. And I have definitely seen college students avoid going out for ice cream with a friend because they're trying to be good. And I don't think that's good. I think it's really important that we're involved socially and we can find a balance with food so that when we're talking about what does healthy eating look like, I'm not going to tell you just to eat fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Like I have 2 little kids. They got home from school today. We had a small bowl of ice cream, like as a treat for doing a good job today. So I do think it's important to have a well-rounded diet. And I do think that's probably some of the big things that are missing. So lack of sleep, drinking enough water, well-rounded nutrition, but also keeping nutrition fun and social, and being involved in your community.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And kind of going off of the whole finding balance, but also not letting it become, okay, I did wellness tests, so I'm going to reward myself with something unhealthy. And then that has like an effect down the line. You can't fall asleep or things like that. How do you find that balance of like, yeah, I want to reward myself with ice cream after an exam, but how does that not become something mentally where it's just, you have to do it every time,
And that's an excellent question. I think we're always trying to find that balance. And just because we did it well last week or a month ago doesn't mean we're going to do it well today or a month from now or a year from now. Just like our mood changes, just like our relationships with people change, our relationship with food changes. And so I do think it's important to have a healthy relationship with food and be able to understand your limitations, and your food cues are not going to be like someone else's. But that also means we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be good. We don't have to be 100%. I always give the example that there's 21 meals in a week. You don't have to be perfect for all of them. Like, give yourself some grace and, have some fun foods, make some food memories. If you're making cookies with a roommate, eat some cookie dough. I mean, I'm not supposed to say that because of raw eggs, but as far as like have some cookies, it's totally fine. Don't hold yourself to the food rules. But to your point, if you have a really good day and then, or even a stressful day, right? We had like a really crummy day. There are some times when it's okay, right? Like if you break up with a girlfriend or boyfriend and you're like hanging out on the couch and watching sappy movies, like have some ice cream. It's fine. It's totally normal. But I do think if you notice it's becoming the rule, that every time you are overjoyed, you have blank, or every time you're having a depressed, sad, overwhelmed moment, you turn to food. Or anytime that you start hiding it or start isolating yourself from it, maybe you're like hiding wrappers, maybe you're going in your room to eat the pint of ice cream instead of enjoying it with friends because you're ashamed or guilty. Any of those feelings that kind of come across as I'm feeling overly anxious after I do it, I'm feeling overly guilty after I eat something. You want to make sure that you're having kind of a relaxed food environment, like you should be able to kind of go with the flow. If your roommates ask you to go out for pizza, you shouldn't order a salad with croutons, right? Have some pizza. What is the balance? If you're going out for ice cream, have some ice cream, and don't just have like, oh, I'll just have a bite of yours. Yeah. Well, have some ice cream. It's totally fine. But then what is the balance? And you shouldn't feel like every time you eat a bowl of ice cream, oh, I have to go to the gym tomorrow. I did really good. Card told me I could have the ice cream, but I'm just going to go to the gym tomorrow. I have to make sure that I, work it off. That isn't balance either. We have to kind of understand our bodies and our brains and be mindful. Are you able to feel if you're hungry or not? Half the people don't even know what that feels like for them. Or sometimes we know way too much what it feels like. You're forcing yourself to be hungry or forcing yourself to, try to limit your portion sizes. And I think that diet culture plays a big role in that. We're not finding the balance of things because our society is telling us that we have to look a certain way or be a certain way or follow the certain rules. Or maybe it's even for health conditions. Some people, I can't have any of that. I'm only eating all natural, all organic, no gluten, no dairy, I'm only vegan. And all of those things are fine in themselves, right? If you follow a vegan diet, that is fine. If you, find that gluten doesn't agree with you, that is fine. But if you're holding to these rules because you're so concerned about a health outcome, or you're so concerned about body image, or you're isolating yourself from people because of these food rules, that's when I think it kind of can become a concern, and you maybe do want to reach out to a professional. And I'm happy to talk with you about that too. I don't specialize in disordered eating, but I am more than happy to talk with you about it and kind of see where you're at. And I can always point you in the right direction there as well. So if you find that you're overeating or undereating, again, feeling guilty, over exercising, isolating yourself from people, I think those are all kind of some red flags that might indicate that you want to talk with someone.
Right. Yeah. And I find, going off of what you said, society is very black and white, dieting, like good, bad, all that sort of thing. So definitely like trying to live in the gray and find that balance. I feel like it's an everyday practice, not something just like one and done. Yes. Not a
and I think mindful right now, or there's a big trend right now of intuitive eating. Mm-hmm. And there are even people taking that to an extreme. I think it was, no offense to I think it was Gwyneth Paltrow or something, had like intuitive fasting this week. I was like, that's not a thing. That really is not a thing. Mm-hmm. So intuitive eating is, paying attention. Do you know your hunger cues? Do you understand when you're eating for emotion versus eating for pleasure and eating for fun? Are you flexible, or are you following lots of food rules? And I think being in tune with yourself, whether it's like yoga or whatever, are you able to identify? I know one of the things we talked about last week even was like the stress cycle, which I found super interesting, and I'm not an expert on, but I encourage you all to like look it up and learn more about it, because we're just holding a lot of tension or a lot of stress and anxiety, and we're not letting our body find a release, and that can cause other anxiety. It can cause sleep problems. It could cause like stomach aches. Even if you frequently have stomach upset, it may be because of a food intolerance or a digestive issue. It may be because of anxiety, or it may be because of stress that's not managed well. And that's really hard to think about, but we have to look at the whole picture.
Right. Yeah, because at first glance, a lot of the diets, they sound great, like intuitive eating, but then when you dig deeper and you think of the mental health consequences of them when they're taken way too extreme, it can be bad.
And I think a food trend or a food diet can be easily identified. Is there actual research behind it, or is it a blog post or something? And then are people able to do it forever? Or is this a time-bound thing? Like, I'm going to do this cleanse for a couple of weeks, or, I'm going to do, this thing for a few days or a couple of months and just see where I get. And then that's a diet. That's something that isn't sustainable for a lifetime. If you're eliminating entire food groups, that's another area that you may not be able to eliminate that entire food group for the rest of your life. So making sure you're understanding why, and if you do have a medical reason why you're eliminating that food group, then reach out to me or reach out to your doctor, so we know what nutrients might be lacking, so that we can make sure that we're adding those back in, so that you can stay healthy overall.
So along those lines, how would you say that we could change our way of eating so that it's something that's sustainable and not just a trend, not just something that we see online, because it's easy to do with calorie counting, carb counting. There's so many different things, the keto that you see, and you just like, oh, I think I need to do that, especially with this period that we've had of isolation or quarantine, so to say. A lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon of let's get health. Is this just a trend though, or is this going to be something that you're going to continue on even after this?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I've seen it as well. And so some people, again, if you're jumping on the keto bandwagon or some of the others, and some of them even, start with good intentions, but then become another food rule. I think a lot of times even something like calorie counting starts with good intentions. You know that you've gone the wrong direction with something. Maybe you have a lot of emotional eating, or your evening snacking is very large portions, or you realize when you look at your plate, it's tan, brown, and orange. Right? You know what I'm talking about? Like fried Chick-fil-A sandwich with French fries and milkshake every meal. I'm not saying that's a bad food. It's one of those that if it becomes the norm, you may want to take a look. And that sometimes when people say, okay, well, if I just calorie count, that's okay. Well, what I've found is that if you calorie count for a day or two, it can be eye-opening. But if you calorie count for weeks or months, it just becomes another food rule. It becomes another thing that if you go 5 calories over, you failed. And if you're 5 calories under, you've been a success. And 5 calories doesn't mean a thing. 1 pound is 3,500 calories. So we're holding ourselves to these hard, fast rules of 5 and 10 calories. And our body isn't meant to operate that way. And most of the time people are tracking wrong. and so you have these hard, fast rules of how good or how bad you're doing, which again is not appropriate verbiage or language. And then you're holding yourself to these rules that may not even be accurate. And so it's just setting yourself up for, again, more of the good, bad, pass, fail mentality. And I don't think it's super sustainable. So I do think about, if your friend was to come up to you and say, I'm going to do blank, what would your concerns be? Ask them of yourself. Find some answers. If you don't have the answers, ask somebody, ask me, ask somebody else. I think a lot of us also have been, trending towards asking a friend, right? Like, oh, you did keto. Like, how's it going? Oh, you did excellent. Awesome. I'm going to do it. We're all different people. And just speaking from experience, when I worked in the clinical and outpatient setting in a hospital, we did a medically supervised ketogenic diet, which I was just telling my husband a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I don't even know if I would go back to that. Like, I don't know that I agree with it. And even when I did agree with it or think it was something that could be helpful for some individuals, it was medically supervised. supervised. We did a lot of blood tests before people started to make sure that their levels were appropriate, that their kidneys and liver could handle it. And so I do think it's something that when you're eliminating major food groups, you can't just do it on a whim. If you have a medical professional, I would ask them about it, please. Make sure that I don't know everyone's medical history, make sure that you're appropriate to even try it. And if you are, then make sure that you have the information supported so that you can do it in a healthy way. But if it's not something you'd recommend to a friend, if it's not something you recommend to your parents, if it's not something that you think you can do 2 years from now, those are all indicators that it's probably a fad diet, may not be something that's good long-term. Did that answer that question? I can't remember which.
Yeah, that does. Yes. How to be more sustainable in your eating as opposed to just following a trend.
Yeah, and I think too, like what we mentioned, if you're going out with friends to grab ice cream or you're having a hard day and you grab a latte who cares? It's great. Yeah. I think if you start to isolate, if you start to hide patterns, if you notice it's happening really regularly, like multiple times a week, and it's associated with guilt or shame or I did bad, those are all indicators that that's probably not a healthy behavior.
Right. And I find it easy, at least for me, when you hear, okay, so-and-so's doing the keto diet and then she's looking great. Then I'm like, well, I want to do it. But it's like you just said, all of our bodies are different and my body might not react the same way.
And the other thing that I'm telling people is, okay, just ketogenic for just an example. Ketogenic is really hard to stick to. Most people try to do it Monday through Friday and then on the weekend I'll be fine, right? That completely shifts your metabolism around. Our bodies prefer to burn carbohydrates as their main source of energy. However, they can burn fat if they need to. And that's what people are like, burns fat, that's what I want to get rid of. That's not how it works. Your body is going to burn excess calories, but the fat is really hard to digest and process when it's burned as its only source of energy. It can do it if we need to. Water and glycogen are held together. Glycogen is one of our main stores of carbohydrate. So when you eliminate that, you're going to see a quick weight drop in the first few days because you're actually losing a bunch of water. And then it goes into ketosis for a couple of days. But then say on the weekend, you're like, oh, I'll just have a few chips or I'll just have something with friends. Your body goes back to using carbohydrates. And now your body is like, I don't know what the heck you're doing. Are you trying to do fats? Are you trying to do carbs? I literally don't know what you're doing. And so I'm just going to hang out. And what happens is it crashes your metabolism. So great for you that you lost 5 to 10 pounds really quickly, but now you've crashed your metabolism. That's exactly what people want, not. And the other side of it is, what sacrifice does it take? I've been challenging people about that lately. So you look good. We've all had those moments when you take a picture and in the moment you're like, oh. And then 5 years later, something, oh my gosh, I looked really good back then, right? And so you're like thinking even in the moment, oh, if I just lose blank amount, what will you feel at that weight? That weight is just a number. It is not defining you. So if you see a number on a scale, how will that make you feel happier? How? Not like when I see it, I'll feel happier. How? Okay, so you can fit in that pair of jeans. And is that going to change who your friends are? Is that going to change how you're doing school? Is that how you change how your family interacts with you? Most of the time, not, right? And if so, that's another question to look into. Why are people so obsessed about it? But then again, what cost does it take? Does it mean that you're feeling hungry? Does it mean that your academics suffer because you can't think as quickly on a test because you're fasting or you're not, taking care of your body? Are you dehydrated and now you're sluggish and not sleeping as well? But man, I fit in those jeans. I don't think that's a quality of life either. And so making sure that it's not just about the picture or the number scale, but what is your quality of life? So we've talked about, is it sustainable? But again, like sustainability means that you can do it regularly. So are you able to hang out with your friends? That's so important. And they don't care. Most people don't even notice when people change weight just a little bit or whatever. So what is it going to cost? I don't really think almost always the benefits do not outweigh the costs when you're looking at a fad diet.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Like the quality of life aspect, that's so important. Because I think digging deeper into why am I going to be happier? Like why? And so finding more of the psychological aspects and realizing, okay, this is not the end all be all.
I know if you're looking for, most people are looking for more energy. They want to feel like excited about life. They don't want to be sluggish and depressed. And a lot of those things are the opposite if you start fasting or under eating or not fueling yourself properly.
Right. Yeah. And kind of going off of that, what are some other negative side effects, not only mentally, but also physically when you aren't eating a balanced diet? Because both ways have negative side effects, right?
Yes. And I feel like we've talked a lot about the mental aspect, and that can be with, eating a whole bunch of junk all the time, regularly, or with some of the under eating stuff. So a lot of times what I see if people are under eating is they're agitated, they're cranky, and you're like, oh, that's me all the time. It may not be because of that. It could be something else. But you might feel foggy. Again, we've talked about sleep is a big one with either overeating or under eating. All of these can play a role. With under eating, sometimes you'll, lose your menstrual cycle. If you're eliminating big food groups, you can actually mess up, like you said, your metabolism, but also, some people, if they're not eating enough calcium and vitamin D, we might see increased fractures or bone breaks, especially if you are doing extra exercise. It can go either way. It can affect your heart. If you're under fueling and severely dehydrated, that can affect your heart. If you're eating lots of saturated fats and cholesterols and white stuff and overeating calories very frequently, that can affect your heart. And I know college age students aren't often worried about their heart, but really more and more college age students are affected by heart disease and or stroke, maybe blood pressure. If you don't know your blood pressure, if you don't know your cholesterol, again, we're coming off of February, which is Heart Health Month. So I encourage you to know your numbers, especially if you have some family member that has it. It's good to know, even at college age, what's your baseline number? So looking at that, it can affect, bone health. We talked about mental health also. So even not getting in enough fruits and vegetables, healthy oils, even with exercise too, we aren't going to touch on that too much, but all of those play into mental health and our ability to use our brain. So even if we're talking about nutrition during exams, it's a lot about healthy oils, fruits and vegetables, stay well hydrated, kind of all the stuff that we're talking about so that you can be quick and clear thinking and able to answer questions. Eyesight can be affected, metabolism can be affected. So a lot of things can be affected if we're not nourishing ourselves properly.
Right. I think the biggest thing to realize is not just your physical weight. It's so much more than that.
Yes.
You can't see,
and just because a lot of people have already heard of it, but there is a really big push right now, health at every size. And you may have heard that, but it really is like you can be healthy at just about any size. If you're really way too thin, that can have implications. If you're, have a lot of excess weight to carry, that can have some implications, but really health at every size. Are you able to move your body in a way that feels good? Are you able to eat foods in moderation, as well as keeping a lot of the healthy foods in our diet, the, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, all of that, as well as including some fun foods too. Right. No food is off limits, but really just saying like a lot of these health concerns can happen, can go away regardless of the size or the number on the scale. Some doctors are still looking at that number on the scale, but I don't think you need to hold to that anymore. BMI and weight are kind of going out the window, and we are really looking at what are you eating? How does it make you feel? What is your mental health? Are you getting some physical activity and physical health? And that doesn't mean pounding on a treadmill for an hour. If you don't like to run on a treadmill, find something else you enjoy. Do you like kickboxing? Do you like spin? Do you like dance? Do you like to go for walks with friends at Radnor Park? There's a lot of things that you can do to move your body in a way that might, feel good to you.
Right. That's true. All right. So, what to you would you say a healthy diet would look like then? You've commented on like the essential food groups that we need, but what would you say, especially in our college lifestyle? Like sometimes it's difficult to get all the nutrients we do need. So
I think it's important not to skip meals. That's one that we haven't really talked about yet, but really you should have 3 meals plus 2 to 3 snacks. Again, it's not hard, fast rules, but if you're only eating 1 meal a day, you're probably not eating frequently enough to be able to fully understand your hunger cues. You really want to make sure that you're drinking enough water. So if you take your weight in pounds and divide that number by 2, that's roughly the amount of ounces of water you should drink per day. So not everyone is 64 ounces is kind of my point, right? Like everyone's like 8 glasses of water. I'm doing fine. I had 6. I'm like, well, if if your body is a little bit bigger, then you might need a little bit more water. So again, all of these number rules are different for each person. Again, whole grains. If you look at your plate, do you see color or do you see tan, brown, orange? So again, I mentioned I'm not a fan of calorie counting. And so one of the things that I do with students is I'll have you take pictures of your plate and keep them just in like a phone file, and that way we can kind of page through them. Can you find the protein? Can you find the color? Are we hitting our marks there? Do you have some kind of starch or grain included as well? You can easily see that if you're kind of skimming through pictures without being overly obsessed about, did I get every calorie? Did I get every protein? Did I get enough carbs or too little carbs or too many carbs or all those things, right? Yeah. So again, do you have color on your plate? Do you have a good protein? And do you have some kind of grains or starchy vegetable? Something like that. That's really good. And then are you having fun with food? Are you eating with friends? I know we're like in the COVID world and it's still a little bit tricky, but if you're able to, are you socializing? And that could even be a Zoom call like this. There are even a lot of different groups that have a meal with friends over this. I know I've been having coffee with friends lately, just like this. It's sort of strange, but you know what, we make it work. But is there still pleasure with food, or are you feeling really guilty? Or anxious? Do you spend most of your day thinking about what you're going to eat next and it's really overwhelming to you? You feel like you don't know what choice to make? That's a red flag. So I think that kind of healthy balance really is not only the food groups and staying well hydrated, but also the mentality behind it. Are you thinking about food all the time and it's super stressful and you never know what the right thing is? Or are you feeling pretty relaxed about it and you feel like, you know what, when the time comes, I'll make a good choice. And if I don't, it'll be okay. I'm going to do my best. And not like I've failed, I'm going to try again tomorrow, which is a different mindset, but really like, I feel confident. I feel confident in making a choice. And you know what, if I make a choice that is my choice, but it's not a choice that someone else would make, I'm not going to be mad at myself for it. Or if Susie next to me at dinner is having just broccoli and chicken, I'm not going to feel guilty for having the rice because this is what my body needs. Right. So making sure that you're not like plate comparing, just like we can't be body comparing. Right. So just kind of think about what's right for you. Make the decision for you.
Yeah, like stepping back and seeing the bigger picture and having because I know even for myself, I like to be black and white and say, okay, well, I had this bad meal, so the whole day's gone. But no, being confident that, okay, that happened and we're going to move on. And
right. And it happened and it happens, right? Yeah. So I do think about this, like food is a relationship. We're sometimes mean to our friends and that sucks. And we just need to say sorry. I'm going to do better next time, and not like I'm going to be perfect next time. It means I'm going to try something else next time and see if that helps us better. Yeah. And so I really think a lot of times thinking about relationship with food like an actual relationship. Like just because my relationship with my friend is good today doesn't mean it's going to be down the road. But also if we know each other really well, I'm confident that we can go grab coffee and have a good time. Even if we disagree sometimes, it's not going to be the end of our friendship, And so I think thinking about it with food as well, once you know your body's cues and you understand your mental health around it, and you can kind of be mindful of, hunger cues, but also preferences and how it makes you feel, then when that time comes, a stressful situation, you might actually like confide in your friend and have that pint of ice cream and be like, thanks, friend. But you know that you're going to be like back to your old self kind of tomorrow.
I've never thought of having like a relationship with food. I like that a lot. It kind of just reframes it all.
I think we talk about it a lot. What is a healthy relationship with food? But like, think about it like a relationship. Yeah. What kind of relationship do you want with food?
Yeah, that's really good. And kind of branching over to more of practicing a healthy lifestyle and meal plan. Is it true, first of all, that a healthy diet or healthy eating requires more money?
No.
Yeah. you hear that all the time. Right?
It is. So, well, if you think about, and no offense to our high-end grocery stores, but if you think about, okay, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to buy all my food at Whole Foods. Yeah, it's probably going to cost you more, right? Yeah. But that doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. And even if you are choosing to shop at Whole Foods, there are a lot of different things that you can buy in different price ranges, and you can look at it that way. I think a few reasons why we spend too much money on food is we have a lot of waste. we spend money and we never eat it. And so we waste it, especially with produce. So kind of keeping that in mind, does it make more sense to buy canned or frozen, especially if it's not packed in the syrups and sugar sweetened and stuff, so you can use it in different ways. And also storing our food properly. So all of those things with produce, like I always give the tip of if you get one of those big things of lettuce, in the plastic containers, you know how it gets all soggy after like a few days and you're like, forget it, and you throw out the whole thing. Okay, when you first get home, take a dry paper towel and wipe out the entire plastic container, and then throw that paper towel away. Get 2 new paper towels, one on the bottom, one on the top, then close your lid. Okay, now every 3 days or so, take out the paper towel and replace it, and that lettuce will keep for almost 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Yes!
That's so awesome.
Okay, because I think that's the thing, is that when it collects moisture, Addison, you mentioned your biology major. So as the cells start to break down, then they start to affect the cells around them. And so then as your lettuce gets wet, it continues to get more and more wet. So if you can keep that moisture out of there, it helps to preserve the integrity of the cells of the leaf so that it can actually hold up better. And then you don't get that slimy, awful spinach that no one wants to eat. So no wonder you throw it out. I'm not telling you to eat it, but if you can preserve it. So there's other things like that you can, if you slice carrots, it's the opposite. You want to keep them in a container of water. Otherwise they dry out. We've all gone to, like, no offense, Buffalo Wild Wings, but you've all been there and had their like totally dried out carrot sticks. They just really need to dunk those guys in some water, and that would hold them up a little bit better. But some of those kinds of things will help you to use your produce so you're not wasting it. So that's kind of the waste side. The other side of it is meat is really expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, so as Americans, we eat a lot of meat, and what the research is showing is we really do need to move towards a plant-based diet for health. And plant-based in the research does not mean vegan. Plant-based means based on plants. And so that means that if you're looking at kind of like a pyramid or whatever, or even your plate, is most of your plate plants, or is most of your plate meat? And so kind of thinking about it that way, are there ways that you can incorporate more plant-based options? And those often are less expensive. So meats you can buy in bulk. You can even buy them when they're about to be to their sell date. A sell date does not mean use by date. There's all these dates on our packaging. And so one of them is like a sell by date. That means it needs to be out of the grocery store, which usually gives you 3 or 4 days, maybe a little longer, but I try to err on the side of caution, 3 to 4 days to consume it. So, today is March 1st. If it says sell by March 1st, that doesn't mean throw it away at March 1st. That means it needs to be in your refrigerator by March 1st. And then you have 3 or 4 days to eat it, right? But if you go to the grocery store today and it says you like sell by March 1st, I can take that home, throw it right in the freezer, and that's easy meal for me to use later. That's not going to go bad. It'll keep in the freezer for 3 months or so.
Yeah.
1 to 3 months, but if you don't have the freezer burn, you can stretch it. 3 months is not going to make you sick if you keep it for 3 months. Now the use by date is one that you have to use by, okay? Because that means it could spoil or something. So that is one that's a safety concern. So if you're leafing through all your stuff in your pantry and you're like, use by, and it's like a month ago, get rid of it. The other one that I talk about frequently is best by date. So if you have a package, especially this will be things like your spices or your baking mixes or eating like a pudding mix or a muffin mix, it'll say best by. And you're like, oh geez, like it's, a couple of days over. I'd say if it's less than a month over, go ahead and use it. Best by, especially if it's with a baking mix and it's not with like raw eggs or something, the raw eggs are going to have a use by date. Best by really means that it's best by. So I used to work for Conagra Foods. They're a food company. My mom was in the food industry. So you get to learn all about food companies, and they're not all evil and out to get you, but they are going to make sure that they're trying to make whatever profit that they can and give you the best product that you can. So they have done tests that said it is best if you use it by this date. One of them is like a hot cocoa mix, for example. If you use that hot cocoa mix a month later, it's not going to be bad, but it might have a teensy bit of an off flavor. It's not going to make you sick. It's just not best by. So I hope that makes sense. That'll save you a little bit of money that way.
Yeah.
If something has been in your refrigerator for over a month, think salad dressings, think coffee creamers. Those are things you probably need to get rid of. It's very hard to use them in the appropriate amount of time, but even if it has the use by date or like an expiration date on it, you still don't want to open it and keep it in your refrigerator for a month or 2 or 6, because that oil can go rancid. If there's egg or dairy in it, there could be a bacteria in there. Then you're just, you have this great salad and now you've, put stuff all over it. So those are some food safety things. Okay. So we've got, plant-based. You guys, I got a little bit distracted, but plant-based, I think, there's like beans and legumes are a great way to save some money.
Yeah.
So you can buy those canned. Those are a great way to add some great protein to things. I know a lot of people now are more familiar with quinoa and brown rice. Those are great whole grains that can add a lot to your diet. It can help you feel full and satisfied. But it also is very inexpensive. So switching more towards a plant base as your base can actually save you some money too. And things like potatoes are relatively inexpensive. So even a sweet potato is super easy. Take a sweet potato, cut it in half, put a little damp paper towel, microwave for 6 minutes, baked potato. You don't have to turn on your oven or anything like that. It's very inexpensive, but a baked potato is big, so it's going to keep you full. And it's only going to cost you like $1. So those are some inexpensive ways just to kind of navigate the grocery store. And eggs, even you can grab a bunch of eggs. You can hard boil a dozen of them, keep them in your fridge for a week. So even eggs are relatively inexpensive. Great way to get some protein.
Mm-hmm. These are great. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so do you have an example of a cost-effective meal or meal plan that you could share with us?
Sure. So I do think that it kind of goes back to our try to eat mostly plants, get in some whole grains, fruits and vegetables. So even fruit, try to shop seasonally, I think will also help. You'll see in the grocery store that certain things are on sale. There's reasons for that. They might be close to their best buy date, or it might be something that's seasonal. So I noticed like asparagus this week just kind of went on sale, and it's a spring vegetable. So we're going to start to see more of that. Your like snap peas and things like that. As spring comes around, a lot of our fresh greens are coming in. So trying to use those items can be very helpful, and let your recipes be flexible. So kind of understand what's a starch, what's your meat, and then what are some of your vegetables and how do they hold up? Is it going to get really mushy if I cook it? Is it going to hold up pretty well if I cook it? Because then you can kind of know some substitutions, right? So like if you're making chili and you don't have ground beef, but you have ground turkey, that would work just as well. It's pretty much the same. Canned tomatoes are canned tomatoes, but it doesn't matter. If you have whole canned tomatoes, like the whole tomato or the diced petite or whatever, any of those will work. They're canned tomatoes. So kind of knowing that. And then it calls for like celery and onion. I don't have celery or onion, but I have bell peppers. And those hold up similar to like an onion. And, for a little extra texture, if I make carrots teeny tiny, like chopped, they will also hold up pretty well in chili. So some of those kinds of things can help, and you may not have the exact ingredients, but knowing how your ingredients works, and that just takes some practice. So give yourself a little grace, try some recipes and try some of your own variations. I would say that to start, the seasonings are ones that I would try to stick to as closely as you can. But let's see, I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind and see if we can get over here. Okay, these are my disordered eating support. I had talked about that with you all. If anyone needs anything, I'm going to post a lot of these so that you've got them. I do have dorm room options. I know everyone has a different cooking level. So I have definitely worked with students before and they're like, I'm afraid of the oven. I don't even know how to turn it on. So these are dorm cooking options. I know most of you have an apartment, but these can be great even in your dorm room. So maybe it's if you have a microwave, there's like a supplies list, kind of some staples. And then there's some recipes here that you can make right in your own microwave. Okay, there's your baked potato recipe I was just talking about. Now, one of my favorite websites. I know it's called Super Healthy Kids, but let me tell you why I love it. They usually use pretty straightforward ingredients. The other thing is that it's made for kids, so most people like the flavors. They're not crazy flavors that are way out there. But where I would encourage you to start, especially if you're newer to cooking, is something called the sheet pan dinners. You'll see those here. And you can even just look that up. Maybe you have like chicken breast and you're looking for sheet pan dinners chicken breast. That's easy to Google search. There's a lot of different websites, but again, this usually tends to have pretty straightforward options. Let me close out all these ads here, right? Okay, so these are good ones. Here's like a sheet pan chicken with spring veggies, and if you click it, it goes right to the recipe, but this is just going over an overview. So here's a kielbasa, that's a type of sausage. Here's one with cashew chicken. What a sheet pan dinner is you basically try to cut your ingredients to similar sizes so that everything cooks at the same time and the same temperature. But that way all your flavors go together and you kind of set it and forget it. I've always said, if I can make a frozen pizza in the same time, that's the goal, right? Because if a meal takes me more than 20 minutes to make, even I was telling them earlier, I have 2 little kids at home. If a meal takes me longer than 20 minutes to make, I also will throw in a frozen pizza. So I encourage you to find recipes that are less than 20 minutes or for sure less than 30. And if there's a way that you can prep your stuff ahead of time, that's of course preferred. So you can see here, there's just a lot of different recipes. I'm also going to share my grocery list. So this is one I put together. I know it's not fancy looking, but these are some meals that are easy meals. I highly recommend this egg muffin. These actually go, let's see if we can get it to open. This is the same Super Healthy Kids, but it's an egg muffin. So if you're looking for breakfast options, these are amazing. It's basically an omelet in a muffin tin. It only takes 15 minutes to cook, probably less, probably 12. And the nice thing is you can keep them in the refrigerator for a week or in the freezer for 3 months. And it's very easy to just microwave and to put on an English muffin as a breakfast sandwich. You could kind of crumble it up and put it on a tortilla as kind of like a breakfast taco, or you could just have these with a side of fruit. And that's a really easy breakfast option. And you can throw in anything. Say you've got leftover turkey or ham or sausage or nothing at all, and you just want to make them veggie. That's totally fine. So it's a very flexible recipe, and hopefully that works for you. But I have hyperlinked all of these things in here, so that's great. There's some different microwave options that are quick and easy that you can throw in the microwave to make your own meal, and just kind of think through different cuisines is my other recommendation. I do like to go over my 4 ways to make chicken. This is easy to do on one big cookie sheet and put it all in the oven on like a Sunday afternoon or whatever, and then you've got chicken for the week. Or another tip is that if you take a crock pot and you put aluminum foil in like a little shape of 2 U's, you've got like a boat in the middle, then you can actually make 2 different flavored chicken breasts at the same time in your crock pot. So you could do salsa, you could do balsamic, like a salad dressing. You can do an Asian style with like a teriyaki or soy sauce, something like that. Or you could do lemon juice with a lemon pepper seasoning. And then by having these chicken already prepared, the salsa chicken you could use as a quesadilla or in a taco or in a taco salad. The balsamic one, you could just do with veggies and have it nice, or you could even put it on a pizza, right? Like make your own mini pizza, use a tortilla shell with a little pasta sauce, etc. Asian style, it's very easy to buy steam bag of rice and steam bag of veggies. Or your other option here is like the lemon pepper. So you could put it on a salad or a wrap, or again, do with rice and veg. But I think thinking about different types of cuisines is really helpful, because we get really bored. Like, I don't want chicken again. That's so much chicken. So I think thinking of different ways to prepare it is really helpful, and stretch your limits. Have you tried different types of fish? There's a lot of really nice ones that are pre-marinated or breaded, and those are easy to pop in the oven. Again, takes less than 20 minutes, very easy to prepare, and makes a good, healthy option for you.
That's so helpful. We really appreciate those resources. I think the biggest thing is just being flexible and realizing you don't have to be an amazing cook. You can just...
No. And I can't tell you the number of times I'm like, I'm just going to make this. And then like, I don't know, 80, 90% of the time, it's awesome. And then there's the 10% of the time my husband's like, maybe we should try a different recipe next time. It happens to everybody. We're not going to go hungry. There's usually ways you can use up the leftovers to make it work. And so I would encourage you, know your food safety rules of how to prep things properly so that you're meeting the time and temperature on your meats or on your different prepared dishes so you stay healthy, but also how to cool it down and make sure that you keep it in the refrigerator no longer than a week. Things that are in the fridge that have been prepared need to be consumed within a week. And if they're in the freezer, then they can keep a lot longer. So say you make like a big plate of lasagna or something with roommates, save a little bit in the refrigerator, but maybe pop a bunch in the freezer. It's always easy to microwave it, and that way you know it won't go bad. Because again, when we're trying to watch a budget, food waste is one of the biggest things. You spend the money and then you don't use it. Right. So we just hate to throw that food out. Yeah. The other thing that I would encourage you guys is you all have access to the dining hall stuff. You know, use the dining hall, even if everything is to go right now. Mm-hmm. So even if you take some foods to go, like your salad or whatever, you can make a stir fry out of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have
done. I don't know, take some bell peppers and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yep. And use your meal swipes. The other thing is, like, we do have the to-go in Kennedy and TK. So again, if you're running late, you all have to have a meal plan to be on campus. Use it. When we're talking about using your budget, use your budget. That's part of your budget. So don't forget about your campus dollars and about your meal swipes, that you can use them on campus, and just think outside the box a little bit. Use food safety, but make sure that you're not wasting those meals either, because that also is money. We want to make sure that you're still able to stay on budget, and that's money right there. You've got at least 7 meals depending on the meal plan you're on. So
yeah, exactly. Or supplementing too is super helpful. Yep. Like you mentioned, getting some kale, and then if I have chicken here or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that's super helpful. Wow. We appreciate you so much.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you have any other questions, Addison?
Not that I can think of. Do you have anything else you wanted to mention, or?
Yeah. I think the only other thing that I was going to mention is you guys have access to now with COVID shopping. You can have it delivered even on campus, I think. I know. So my husband and I lived in Patton for 3 years. He was a resident director there. And then we were in Coral for a year. Then with 2 kids, it's too much. So we moved off campus. But I will say, like, grocery delivery is amazing, and it helps you budget. If nothing else, make a list. But I know one of the other things that happens is you get short on time and you're like, there's nothing in the fridge, and then you go out to eat and then it blows your budget. So if you can keep the appropriate things in your refrigerator, that helps a lot. And a lot of these companies now, you can put multiple people on your account. I know there's a lot of them out there. There's the Click List and all of that. I know our family uses Instacart, and there's a bunch of options, but through Instacart, you can have it, go in with your roommates, put in your grocery list, Venmo each other, whatever it is that you owe, and have groceries delivered at a time that a roommate is going to be there. And that can save you a trip to the grocery store, or if you don't have a car on campus or something like that. But that's another way to make sure that you have the appropriate groceries in your pantry so that you can make some of these meals on a budget.
Right. That's the thing, because sometimes I don't plan in advance when I go to the grocery store. I'm just buying what I need for today or tomorrow. And so just like grabbing a few things that you think you could use throughout the week.
I know the other downfall is just that people buy groceries for the recipe that they're making, and they don't think about all these multi-purpose ingredients: plain chicken breast, fish that's marinated different ways, brown rice in a microwave pack, or whole wheat pasta, or regular pasta. Tortillas are very versatile. Any kinds of veggies. Think about fruit that you're going to have, like bananas ripen pretty fast. But apples and oranges keep for a long time. So if you're buying berries, you're going to have to eat them first, then like your bananas and grapes, and then you have your apples and oranges. So if you're going to the grocery store, don't just buy berries, because 4 days in, regardless of the tips and tricks I have to save it, your berries are going to start to mold. So you want to make sure that you have fruit that can last you the week or whatever, how often you go grocery shopping. Because if you only buy berries, by the end of the week, you're going to say, I don't have any fruit. Well, it's because you didn't buy longer lasting fruit. So thinking about different fruits and vegetables and their shelf life as well.
Makes sense. Awesome. Wow.
Any other questions? These were great questions.
I've learned so much.
I know. This is really
think we've kind of been through our list of questions. I'm trying to think if there are any other ones off the top of my head.
I think one of the only other questions we had was, do you recommend doing vitamins? Like, is a multivitamin something
that's a great question. I am a huge food first fan. I honestly believe that you can get all your nutrition through food, unless you're an elite athlete that's going to the Olympics. Even our athletes on campus can get all their nutrition through food if they're eating well, not skipping meals. Make sure you're getting all the foods that you need. That being said, there are some things, if you want to do a multivitamin because you're just not sure, that usually doesn't hurt. The gummies don't have any minerals in them. So I do recommend, especially young women, that if you have heavy cycles or you're looking for iron, don't do the gummies. Even though they're super tasty, they actually aren't going to help in the way that you think. And the only other one, follow up with your doctor on vitamin D. That's one that can be low. And finally, if you don't like fish or you're not big on healthy oils, fish oil can be one that you can use. But I would never, ever recommend buying on Amazon, just, on a blue, I'm just going to find the cheap option. There are third-party verifiers that verify supplements. One of them is NSF, and I can send you all the link for that too. But they third-party test. There's a few others as well. Informed Choice is another one. But you can look and see if that supplement has been third-party tested. And that just basically means that what they say is in there is in there. And I do think that that's important because there are a lot of, scams and people trying to add stuff to vitamins and things like that. I would say go for sure with a name brand. Don't buy it on a whim off of Amazon. And if you can find one that's third-party tested, that's going to be one that for sure what they say is in there is in there.
All right.
The Office of Dietary Supplements, I know that's a mouthful. It's through the NIH, National Institutes of Health. They have a great supplement page also. So if you're like, oh, so-and-so is like on a trend, they're going to start taking turmeric. I wonder if that's a good idea. That's a great website to just kind of look it up. They have a consumer page, so it's really easy to read language, and they can kind of give you the pros and cons in a one-page handout. That's the Office of Dietary Supplements by the National Institutes of Health. Did it get any longer? It's like a mouthful, really. But yes, if you can do it through food, that is my preferred choice every single time.
Yeah. Well, because even with iron and things like that, then you can have your the bell peppers and then the specific types of beans as well in your lagoon and all that. Yes, I've done that myself.
Yep.
It's easy to just Google what food is high in X or Y and just buy it.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
So if anybody has questions after this, I know we covered so much, you guys. If you have questions or you need some follow-up, you can email me. It's Kara, Kara.Miller @Sodexo, SODEXO.com. Or you can send me a direct message on Instagram @Dietitian_Kara, or I'm sure I've got like the little leaflets and stuff in the dining hall too, if you can't find me, or I'm on the website or whatever. So reach out anytime. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this time with us and explaining so much to us.
That was great. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.